Most people spend their lives chasing money like it's some prize waiting at the end of a long road. But wealth doesn't wait. It's not something you find, it's something you build. And the building starts long before the bank account ever grows. Because here's the truth, poverty begins in the mind long before it shows up in your wallet. Wealth isn't just a number, it's a system, a way of thinking, a way of deciding what matters and what doesn't. While most people focus on income, the wealthy focus on structure. While the 97% react to life, the 3% plan it and act with intent. And that plan begins with a choice to stop living by default and start living with direction. It's not about luck. It's not about talent. And it's definitely not about waiting to have more before you begin. The people who build real wealth don't start with excess. They start with intention. They don't wait to feel ready, they get clear, they act, and they repeat what works. Today isn't about learning how to make more money. It's about learning how to think differently so that your actions change, your results shift, and your future becomes something you can control. Because the real problem isn't that people don't want wealth. It's that they've never been shown how to build it. They've been taught to consume, to hope, to wait. But no one builds wealth on hope. You build it on discipline. You build it on design. And at the end of this video, I'll show you the one daily habit that quietly separates the 3%, not by how much they make, but by how they think. If that already shifts something for you, like the video now, and let's move forward. Why paying yourself first changes everything. If you ever want to build real wealth, you start by flipping the script. Before you pay the landlord, the tax office, or even your bills, you pay yourself. That's not a motivational line, it's the first law of financial control. Paying yourself first means honoring your future before reacting to your present. And if you think you can't afford to, that's exactly why you must. Because wealth has never been about how much you make. It's about what you keep, and more importantly, what you do with what you keep. People who stay broke keep reacting. People who build wealth plan forward. You get paid $500. Most people subtract expenses, first rent, food, fuel, fun, and then hope there's something left. Usually there isn't. That's the 97% mindset. It puts the future last. The wealthy reverse that process. They subtract their future first. 10% off the top, maybe more, goes to savings, investments, long-term value, before anything else. Then and only then they cover their costs. I learned this the hard way. I was broke, small paycheck, pile of bills, but my mentor said start now, start small, $1 out of 10. It felt pointless, but I did it anyway. And that one small habit rewired everything. Because when you pay yourself first consistently, something changes. You stop being a servant to your money. You start becoming its master. You tell your money where to go. You don't ask where it went. That's ownership. And let's be clear, this isn't about being selfish. It's about being strategic. You're not hoarding. You're planting. Every dollar you save is a worker. You either send it out into the world to earn for you, or you waste it on temporary pleasure and wonder why nothing changes. You don't need a raise to start building wealth. You need a rule. Pay yourself first, always. The day you start choosing your future over your feelings, that's the day you stop being average. That's the day you enter the 3%. Now let's talk about the trap that keeps most people from ever getting their emotional spending. Why the broke spend emotionally and the wealthy act strategically. Most people don't spend money. They relieve themselves with it. That's the hard truth behind financial struggle. The average person doesn't buy based on goals. They buy based on feelings, relief, stress, boredom, the need to feel better now. So they spend impulsively. A night out, a new gadget, a quick delivery that feels like progress. But that feeling doesn't last. And when the money's gone, so is the comfort. This cycle keeps 97% of people stuck. Not because they don't earn, but because they can't delay. They treat dollars like medicine for their mood instead of soldiers for their future. Compare that to the 3%. They spend differently. They don't buy escape, they buy direction. To them, every dollar is a lever, not a release. They don't ask, do I feel like this? They ask, does this move me closer to my target or farther? And that single question changes the entire outcome. I remember watching this play out early in my career. I was tempted to grab the same comforts as everyone else. But I started noticing the difference between those who had options and those who were always broke. The difference wasn't income. It was the pause. They paused before every purchase. They didn't spend out of reaction. They decided based on direction. That pause, that 3-second question created clarity, and clarity creates freedom. These people weren't cutting joy. They were cutting waste. They weren't being stingy. They were being strategic. And the results proved it. While others floated paycheck to paycheck, they built savings. While others had the latest gadgets, they had options. The truth is simple. Intentional spending builds financial freedom. Emotional spending builds regret. Wealth is not built on what you earn. It's built on what you refuse to waste. So here's the shift. Before every purchase, stop and ask, will this make me stronger tomorrow or just feel better tonight? That habit alone separates consumers from creators. Discipline isn't about denying yourself. It's about choosing your long game. Because every dollar you let go of emotionally is one less step toward independence. And every dollar you invest with intention becomes a building block for freedom. Now let's get even more specific. If you want real control, not just over how you spend, but over how you live, you need to track every dollar. That's where the next breakthrough begins. Why you're lost without tracking. The biggest reason most people stay broke. They don't know where their money is going. It slips through their fingers like water, invisible, unaccounted for, and gone. They work hard. They stress about bills, but they operate on guesswork. No plan, no numbers, no structure. And they wonder why things never improve. Here's the truth: you can't manage what you don't measure. Hoping your finances will work out without tracking is like sailing blind without a compass. You might feel like you're making progress, but you're drifting, not steering. The 97% say things like, I don't want to obsess over money. I'll figure it out later. But the 3% think differently. They don't avoid numbers, they seek them. They know that clarity is power. Not because they want to control every penny, but because they want to control their future. Clarity gives them leverage. It shows them where the leaks are. It shows them what's working and what isn't. And that knowledge, week after week, compounds into financial confidence. When I started tracking, I used a simple notebook. 1 page per week: income, expenses, savings, investments. At first it was uncomfortable. I saw waste I didn't want to admit. I saw habits I hadn't noticed. I saw spending I couldn't justify. But discomfort is data, and data brings change. What gets tracked gets corrected. You start noticing patterns: the extra eating out, the mindless online spending, the apps you forgot you subscribed to. Just writing it down creates resistance against impulse, and it invites discipline, not forced but chosen. Soon you start making better decisions before you even realize it, because your mind begins working in sync with your goals, not your moods. So here's the move. Don't wait for a higher income to start tracking. Don't wait until you feel ready. Use whatever you've got: a journal, a spreadsheet, or a free app. Write it down weekly. Review it honestly. Adjust it ruthlessly. This isn't about being perfect. It's about becoming conscious. When you know where every dollar is going, you finally know where your life is headed. And that's the first step toward freedom. Now let's talk about why effort isn't enough and why the real reward follows value, not just time. Why time alone won't make you rich. Most people believe the harder you work, the more money you make. That belief keeps them stuck. They trade hours for dollars, thinking that grinding longer is the key to financial success. But it's not. Effort alone is not wealth. Time is not the currency that matters most. Value is. You can work 10 hours doing what anyone else can do, or you can spend 10 hours solving a problem no one else can. Only one of those creates leverage. That's what the 3% understand. Wealth flows to those who increase the value of what they bring, not just the time they give. When I was younger, I worked long days. I punched the clock. I stayed late. I told myself, if I just keep working hard, eventually I'll get ahead. But the breakthrough came when I realized people don't pay for time. They pay for transformation. They pay for clarity, results, leadership, outcomes. If your contribution is replaceable, your income will be restricted. If your skills are rare and relevant, your income expands. So here's the shift. If you want to earn more, stop asking how to work more hours. Start asking, what skill can I develop that multiplies the value of my time? This is how the 3% operate. They don't chase overtime, they invest in capability. They sharpen communication so they can lead. They master sales so they can influence. They study finance so their money doesn't leak. They learn how to solve higher level problems so they're paid accordingly. And here's the upside: these skills compound. They don't just help you today, they build momentum for decades. When you improve your skills, you don't just earn more. You create new doors. You create new leverage. You create options that don't exist for people still counting hours. So stop measuring effort. Measure impact. Ask, what am I learning that multiplies my usefulness? What am I building that others will pay for? Because when you focus on value, not just motion, money starts following you instead of running from you. And that brings us to the next turning point: how to make sure your habits don't rely on motivation but are driven by system. How the 3% build wealth without trying harder. Building wealth isn't about willpower, it's about systems. Most people start with good intentions. They want to save, invest, improve. But life gets in the way. Bills show up, distractions multiply, the resolve fades. That's why the 97% live in cycles, motivated for a few weeks, then falling back. The 3% break this pattern not with more discipline, but with better structure. They design systems that work automatically whether they feel inspired or not. No guessing. No relying on bursts of energy. The simplest example, automation. They set up automatic transfers that move a portion of their income into savings or investments the moment they get paid. No thinking, no delay. It's already gone to work. This is how you truly pay yourself first without needing to remember, without giving emotion the chance to interfere. It's like planting seeds that water themselves. Over time, those seeds grow quietly, even when you're focused on other things. They also use technology to track finances, apps, spreadsheets, digital tools that reveal exactly where money. Small habits build big wealth. Wealth doesn't happen in big moments. It happens in small, invisible ones repeated without fail. The 97% keep chasing dramatic change. They wait for a breakthrough. But the 3% know the truth. Success is a system of small disciplines done daily, even when they seem insignificant. The big gap between broke and wealthy isn't willpower. It's ritual. Read 10 pages of a book about money every morning. It won't turn you into an expert in a week, but it will shift your thinking slowly and permanently. Knowledge compounds like interest, quietly at first, then exponentially. The goal isn't speed, it's momentum. Review your financial goals every morning. That takes less than 2 minutes, but it aligns your day with purpose. While others start in chaos, you start with clarity. That habit builds internal direction, and direction controls results. Invest something every payday, even if it's small. $10 done repeatedly beats 1,000 done randomly. What matters isn't the size, it's the rhythm. Consistency is the real force behind compound growth. Cut one unnecessary expense a week. Not because you're depriving yourself, but because you're proving that you control your money, not the other way around. Each small cut redirects energy from short-term satisfaction to long-term leverage. I started doing all of this when I had almost nothing, but those tiny habits gave me something more powerful than money control: discipline, identity. And over time, the habits did the heavy lifting. They built the foundation I didn't have before. If you want to be in the 3%, don't wait for a big shift. Start with the next small one. Make it daily. Make it non-negotiable. These micro movements are what build the muscle for financial independence. Now let's take that idea one step further, because the 3% don't just build good habits. They also build resilience by refusing to rely on just one income. Never rely on one paycheck. If all your money comes from one place, your future is one step from collapse. The 3% never let that happen. They build wealth on multiple legs, not one. They treat income like a table. The more stable legs it has, the harder it is to fall. Most people rely on a single job, one paycheck, one source. That's why they feel anxious all the time. Deep down, they know it's fragile. You get sick, the company shifts, the economy moves, and suddenly your entire foundation is gone. The wealthy think differently. They don't just earn, they create. They add streams of income slowly, deliberately, not to impress others, but to secure themselves. That second stream might start small: a side hustle, an online project, a freelance skill. Doesn't matter. What matters is motion. Over time, it grows. It adds stability. Then maybe a third stream: investments, real estate, dividends. And eventually, income comes in while they sleep. That's not luck, that's design. Multiple income streams aren't just about making more money. They're about taking back control. They protect you when the unexpected hits. They give you options when others are stuck. I didn't start with 4 legs under the table. I started with one, just like most people. But I added a second, and then a third. Not overnight, not easily, but with patience. Eventually, it changed everything. I no longer feared losing my job. I stopped thinking in terms of survival. I started thinking in terms of freedom. You don't have to build a business empire, but you do have to stop depending on just one flow of money, because that's not income, that's risk. So ask yourself, what skill could I turn into a service? What problem could I solve on the side? What knowledge could I monetize in a small way? It's not about scale, it's about structure. 1 stream buys groceries, 2 creates security, 3 starts to buy freedom. Now let's get to the root of where financial transformation really begins, not with income, but with what you feed your mind. Wealth starts with what you feed your mind. Formal education can help you earn a living, but self-education is what builds your fortune. The 3% understand this difference. They know wealth isn't just numbers, it's thinking. It's the ability to make better decisions because your mind is trained for clarity, strategy, and growth. The 97% fill their heads with entertainment, distractions, noise. They scroll, consume, repeat. They let their focus rot while their financial stress builds. But the 3% treat the mind like a bank. They make daily deposits, books, interviews, mentors, strategy. Not fluff, not hype, just principle. Your mind is soil. If you plant junk, you harvest struggle. If you plant clarity, you harvest wealth. That's not theory, it's pattern. When I started, I didn't have money, but I had time, so I invested it. 10 minutes a day reading about finance, listening to people who had what I wanted. It wasn't dramatic, but over time those minutes stacked. Soon I wasn't guessing anymore. I was acting with intention. I had new mental models. I saw through lies. I understood leverage risk patterns. And that changed everything. You don't need more talent, you need better inputs. Feed your mind with structure, with wisdom, with truth. Do it daily, even if it's 5 pages, 1 podcast, 1 insight. Don't wait until you have time. Make time. Cut 10 minutes from distraction and redirect it to education. The compound effect will do the rest. The 3% don't just think differently, they train themselves to. On purpose, every day. Because they know wealth doesn't start in the wallet. It starts in the mind. And the next habit takes that mental clarity and transforms it into action through one powerful step. Most people avoid goal setting with deadlines. Turn dreams into deadlines or stay broke. Dreams don't build wealth, deadlines do. You can wish, hope, or visualize all you want, but until your goal is written down, dated, and broken into steps, it won't move. That's where 97% get stuck. They say they want financial freedom, but when you ask how much by when, there's no answer. The 3% think in targets. Their vision is measurable, timed, structured. They don't just want wealth, they define it. How much do I want saved in 1 year? What will that look like in 5? What's the reason behind it? Freedom, family, legacy. When purpose is vague, action drifts. When purpose is clear, action sharpens. You can't hit a target you haven't drawn. So the 3% draw it first in detail. Then they reverse engineer it into steps they can hit daily, weekly, monthly. That's how you climb the mountain, not by force, but by rhythm. A little more invested this week. 1 new thing learned today. 1 wasteful purchase cut tomorrow. These micro decisions compound. They give you proof that your future is moving forward, not floating. And here's the habit that keeps it alive. Revisit your goals every morning. Don't just set them once. Reconnect with them daily. Visualize what you're building. Feel it. Not for motivation, but for alignment. To remind your mind where it's going before the day pulls you off course. This single disciplined daily goal review is a filter. It makes your decisions easier. It keeps your focus clean. It keeps your time from being stolen by distractions pretending to be urgent. Without goals, your actions scatter. With them, your habits concentrate. Clarity makes you dangerous. And the 3% carry that clarity into everything, especially how they think about wealth beyond themselves. Next, let's talk about why wealth isn't just personal, it's relational. And why legacy always beats secrecy. Wealth isn't private. It's a system you pass on. Wealth isn't something you hide. It's something you teach. The 3% don't treat money like a secret. They turn it into a system, then share it with the people who matter most. Because building wealth isn't just about getting ahead. It's about creating a foundation strong enough to carry others with you, your family, your circle, your legacy. When I started talking about money with people close to me, I saw 2 things happen. They grew and I got sharper. Explaining forced me to clarify. Teaching made me more consistent. That's how you move from success to sustainability, not by staying quiet, but by creating accountability. Mentor your kids. Walk someone through what you've learned. Open up your process. Show them your system, not your outcome. When you do that, your progress multiplies. Because now your money carries meaning. And here's what most miss: sharing your goals makes them stronger. Not weaker, stronger. The moment you say it out loud, the moment you involve someone else, you raise the stakes. You stay on track. You resist the drift. That's why the 3% often surround themselves with people on the same path. They don't isolate. They build momentum through mutual discipline. The 97% treat money like a solo game. The 3% treat it like infrastructure, something built, tested, and passed on. So if you want to make your success stick, don't just hit your numbers. Teach them. Don't just improve your mindset, multiply it. That's how wealth becomes a system, not a phase. And now we arrive at the core tension that separates the 2 mindsets, completely the difference between chasing now and building for later. Delay pleasure, multiply freedom. The average person wants it now, the coffee, the trip, the upgrade. That's why they stay broke. The 3% think differently. They understand wealth is never built in the moment. It's built by mastering the ability to wait. They know that every unnecessary purchase today is a cost to their freedom tomorrow. And they don't trade long-term independence for short-term applause. When I started out, I wanted the same things everyone did: the nicer car, the spontaneous night out, the upgrades that make you feel successful. But I paused. I looked at the $300 I could have spent on entertainment and chose instead to invest it in books and skills and assets that would quietly build value. It didn't impress anyone, but it bought me time. And time over time became freedom. That's the trade-off. Most people don't make it because they're too focused on the moment. They measure value in comfort. The 3% measure it in control. They know every dollar saved or invested is a seed, not a sacrifice, a strategy. Like a farmer, they plant without expecting harvest tomorrow. But when the results come, they come in multiples. While others are chasing another dopamine hit, they're building a life they don't need to escape from. So ask yourself this. What small pleasure can you delay today, not to feel deprived but to buy back power? Skip the impulse, build the base. The more you delay, the more you own your future. That's not discipline for its own sake. That's strategy with a return. And now, with all of this laid out, from habits to systems to mindset, we're ready to bring it together into one final challenge: how to shift from knowing this to acting on it. This is the discipline that builds freedom. Wealth has never been about luck. It's not hidden, and it's never the result of one dramatic breakthrough. It's built deliberately through the kind of daily structure most people never stick with long enough to see results. Most of the world stays stuck not because they lack opportunity, but because they follow the wrong model. They spend based on emotion. They don't track what they earn or where it goes. They rely on a single paycheck and call it stability. They wait to feel ready before they act. They chase instant gratification and ignore the cost of delay. The 3% live by a different code. They pay themselves first, no matter how little they start with. They track every dollar not to obsess, but to stay conscious. They invest consistently even when the market isn't exciting. They automate their systems so that discipline happens whether they feel like it or not. They delay pleasure not as a punishment, but as a way to gain leverage. They train their mindset before they try to increase their money. They don't chase wealth. They operate like builders. And their wealth becomes the side effect of that structure. So here's the challenge, and you already know it. Don't wait. Don't just agree in silence. Don't watch this and return to the old pattern. Choose one discipline, one financial habit, and install it today. Set a number with a deadline. Automate the first step. Skip one purchase. Track 1 week. Read 1 page. Not to become wealthy overnight, but to prove you're no longer someone who leaves clarity unused. Repeat it tomorrow. Then teach it to someone else. And let it become what you do, not because you're inspired, but because it's who you are now. Wealth does not arrive with applause. It builds in the quiet through the choices made when no one's watching, when it's easier not to. If you want to live like the 3%, begin by thinking like them today, and act like them, especially when it's inconvenient. Then let time do what it always does for those who commit early, think clearly, and repeat with intention. It multiplies. If this topic matters to you, subscribe now, and you don't want to miss what's next.